I still regret letting my 21-year-old self witness the mess my 31-year-old self was in, forcing me to sign those divorce papers. He somehow time-traveled, a ghost from the past, to see the absolute train wreck our happily ever after had become. At 21, he loved me, spoiled me, promised me the world. At 31, he loved someone else, spoiled someone else, wanted to give her the world he once promised me, and I was just a damn roadblock. So, he poured all his energy into getting rid of me. His hand, once so gentle, now tightened around my throat, slowly, deliberately, squeezing the breath out of me. I saw a twisted flicker of satisfaction in his hateful eyes. Did he even remember that hand, so carefully, so timidly, hooking my pinky finger as he whispered, "I like you?" At 21, he swore his 31-year-old self was a jerk. He said he'd take that jerk away so I could live a carefree life. But from that day on, my world was missing its RTN. My dad's call came out of nowhere. Could I set up a dinner with Chen Tian? It had been 2 years since our lives imploded. 2 years of absolute radio silence. We'd agreed, no contact, no interfering, not even holiday greetings with each other's families. Honestly, my dad's timing was baffling, more awkward than anything. I couldn't even reach Chen Tian. He'd blocked me everywhere. I pressed my dad, "Is it really necessary?" I emphasized, really hoping he'd drop it. We'd been strangers for 2 years. Why stir up trouble now, like when he first demanded the divorce? I remembered that day. I refused to sign. He just stared, a cold smirk on his face. "Fine, then you can be Chen's wife in name only until you die. I'm holding on to this Mrs. Chen title, and there's no way Li Ying is ever gonna take my place." But my dad was insistent. "Wenny, just one dinner with him, please." I still had Li Ying's number. I'd even used my Mrs. Chen status to warn her off, told her to stay away from him. She'd just sobbed, "Sister Chu, you've misunderstood me." That night, Chen Tian, a rare sight at our home, choked me without a word, his voice a low growl, "Chu Kuwen, stop playing games behind my back. If Li Ying is upset, I'll take it out on you." We'd only been married 6 months then. He'd already cut off his family, moved in with Li Ying. 10 years into our relationship, he met Li Ying, and the cheating started. I confronted him, trying to end their situationship. Back then, he still knew he was wrong, admitted I was right, even came back to apologize. So, we rushed the wedding. No fuss, no ceremony. Just 2 people, one fueled by guilt, the other by stubborn refusal to lose, signing papers the next day. It was a ridiculously windy day. My meticulously done hair and makeup were in shambles the second I stepped out of the car. The photos on our marriage certificate. A disaster, perfectly reflecting our inner turmoil. It felt forced, even though we both agreed to it. He didn't force me. I didn't force him. 10 years of love, entering a new phase. Yet neither of us was happy. It was a nightmare we couldn't wake from. 2 months into the marriage, we tried. We tried to ignore the past, to go back to how things were. But it only lasted 2 months of forced politeness before Li Ying came back for him. His repressed emotions exploded. He sat on the sofa, weeping, confessing to me. He was apologizing, saying he'd betrayed our 10 years of love, from my naive 18-year-old self to my 28-year-old self. It hadn't always been smooth sailing. Before I was 18, he relentlessly pursued me. But at 28, just as I felt him trying to love me again, he said, "Kuwen, I wish we hadn't gotten married." He was apologizing, but his words shattered me. "What do you mean, I wish we hadn't gotten married?" Just because Li Ying was crying, asking if he could marry her properly. I felt possessed, clinging on like a madwoman. They wanted to be together. I'd do the opposite. So I stood up and slapped Chen Tian. This disgusting man, apologizing for his betrayal on one hand, subtly blaming me on the other. I was the one keeping him and Li Ying apart. I was a demon, gnashing my teeth, wanting to rip them apart and swallow them whole. I stood over him, tears still wet on his face from Li Ying. The hatred and disgust exploded in me, a sharp pain in my chest, making me break out in a cold sweat. A crazy thought popped into my head. Let's just die together. Chen Tian, I said, let's be tangled together until death do us part. He didn't say a word, just got up and left, and never came back. My marriage, built on 10 years of love, became my tomb. How sad. Before I could even figure out what to bargain with Chen Tian, my dad texted again, Wenny, don't bother setting it up. Just meet him at your place. I found Li Ying's number in my contacts. My finger hovered over the screen, hesitated, then pressed call. Chen Tian and I hadn't spoken in a year. In the beginning, I'd occasionally make things difficult for them, but my belligerence only fueled their love. The more aggressive I was, the more intensely they loved each other. Ultimately, I was the one who lost to reality. I once asked Chen Tian, what do you like about Li Ying? How could you love me so much and then just turn around and love another woman? He answered with an impatient, indifferent tone, Chu Kuwen, love has no reason. Maybe that's how he rationalized his betrayal. Love comes and goes freely, so he could just transfer it from me to Li Ying. Stupid words like that, I only ever asked him once, when I was drunk. Never again after that. The phone was answered on the last ring. Li Ying claimed she didn't hear it, but I could clearly hear her TV, not loud enough to drown out a ringing phone. I didn't want to waste time wondering if she was trying to assert herself or genuinely didn't hear. Either way, it wasn't my concern. I asked if Chen Tian was there, that I needed to see him. I heard Li Ying softly call, Artian, Artian. Then Chen Tian's voice echoed from a distance. What is it? I used to call him that too. Artian, Artian. Come to think of it, maybe I started calling him Chen Tian the moment I noticed his affair. I knew my Artian would always love me, but Chen Tian no longer loved me. Now he loved another woman. Chen Tian's voice through the phone made me unconsciously pull it away from my ear. I knew his first words would be, Chu Kuwen, what do you want? His tone would be ice cold, accusing me of being unreasonable. Why was I still clinging on? I waited for him to finish before putting the phone back to my ear. He didn't bother to say much, just waited silently for my answer. My dad wants to meet you, I said. Do you have time? I'd even prepared myself. If he said no, I'd play my card, I'd agree to the divorce. My whole life, I'd done things to hurt my dad, loving the wrong person, impulsively getting married, then stubbornly refusing to divorce. I'd put my entire life on the line to fight Chen Tian. Win or lose, I just wanted a clean break. But I didn't want to drag my dad into it, to cause him any more worry or pain because of me. So, if Chen Tian set any conditions, I'd sign the divorce papers without hesitation and give them to him, a mutual release. To my surprise, he agreed cheerfully, even asked me when and where. Then I heard Chen Tian add, Li Ying, come here and listen too, so there are no misunderstandings and no drama. This kind of open, public affection used to be my exclusive privilege. Back then, no matter how much my dad objected, Chen Tian and I were determined to be together, sneaking around. Sometimes, when Chen Tian was playing basketball with friends and didn't reply to my texts fast enough, I'd make a huge scene, accusing him of messing around with other girls. After one fight, he had to call his friend to confirm he was really just playing basketball. From then on, he learned his lesson. Whenever someone called, he'd call me over and put it on speaker so I could hear. He used to coax me like that, Kuwen, come here and listen. Otherwise, you'll misunderstand and cause a scene again. Now, that privilege was snatched from me and given to another girl. Just like a friend once teased him, you're spoiling her rotten. Chen Tian would grin and reply, I love her, so she can be like that. But now, the sharp end of the stick was pointed squarely at me. Chen Tian moving in with Li Ying became an undeniable scandal. My dad, furious, rushed over. I was sitting numbly on the floor, my tears long dried, too sad to cry anymore. The first thing my dad said when he walked in was, Chu Kuwen, wash your face and sit on the sofa. My dad always used my full name when he was angry. The first time he did it was when Chen Tian was waiting outside our house. When he found out we were dating, he shattered a glass, yelling at me for being foolish, for not knowing what I should and shouldn't be doing at my age. I was 18 then, and Chen Tian had been pursuing me for a long time. He wasn't cold and cruel like this back then. He carefully approached me, step by step, expressing his feelings. I don't remember my exact feelings when I received each confession, but I still remember his cautious demeanor under the desk, gently hooking my finger and saying, "Chu Ku-wen, I like you." Yet, those same hands, after meeting Li Ying, became ropes, slowly, bit by bit, strangling my breath, asking me why I wouldn't just die. That's when I understood. A person could turn words of love into curses, once wishing for my affection, now wishing for my complete disappearance. He loved me, and he hated me. If I didn't follow his wishes, I became the villain. My dad's second statement was an unnegotiable command: "Chu Ku-wen, divorce Chen Tian and come home with me." That period was truly chaotic for both families. My dad insisted I divorce Chen Tian. If he didn't want me, I couldn't want him either. Chen Tian's parents came to mediate, but my dad's anger, fueled by their stubbornness, intensified. Everyone was there that day except Chen Tian. There was even a time they called him in, his parents forcing him to apologize, to break up with Li Ying and reconcile with me. But Chen Tian held his head high, as if defying the world. "I can't leave Li Ying," he said. "Instead of advising me, you'd better advise Chu Ku when to agree to the divorce soon. I'll marry someone else, she'll marry someone else. We'll stay out of each other's way." That day, Chen Tian was slapped 3 times, once by his mother, once by my dad, and once by me. Truthfully, I was almost convinced by my dad then, beginning to consider divorce. But Chen Tian's defiant, smug look, even as he was cheating, choked me. Fine, I thought, let's torment each other. No one gets to live in peace. So I slapped him hard across the face, yelling, "Chen Tian, I'm not divorcing you. Let Li Ying be a mistress forever." Immediately after, my dad slapped me back. He was so angry he cursed, "Chu Ku-wen, get out. I don't have a daughter like you." I knew I was too stubborn, causing my dad so much pain. From then on, every holiday, I'd secretly send gifts and congratulatory messages, but I never dared to show my face. My dad never replied to any of my messages. So, when he suddenly called me, I was both surprised and flustered, a nameless anxiety rising within me. Throughout those 2 years of being strangers with Chen Tian, I couldn't help but feel regret sometimes. I occasionally thought, if I hadn't been so stubborn then, perhaps, at least with my dad, things wouldn't have been so strained. Chen Tian arrived early, standing by the shoe rack. He couldn't find his slippers, so he just stood outside the door, not stepping in. I ignored him, busy with things inside. I knew my dad liked Biluo Chun tea, so I'd prepared it in advance. My dad walked straight in. Chen Tian followed. His obedient demeanor suddenly made me feel like I was seeing 18-year-old Chen Tian, standing before my dad. With his school bag, radiating a scholarly aura, carefully observing my dad's expression, he'd once told me he'd carefully thought about what to say to convince my dad to let us date. We were so young then, how could we contend with experienced adults? His grand promises were just wind to my dad's ears, without any weight. I still remember my dad asking Chen Tian back then, "You're so young, how can you guarantee you'll fulfill this lifelong love you just spoke of?" He was so resolute then, saying he would definitely do it, even foolishly offering to write a letter of commitment, to swear oaths. That innocence, in the eyes of adults, was nothing but a joke. And looking back now, it truly was a joke. The person who swore to love me forever when he was young, after achieving success, turned around and swore eternal love to someone else. Our love had been forced into the shadows. After 2 years of secret dating, my dad saw that our relationship was stable and stopped objecting. Only then could we be openly together. As they sat on the sofa, I intended to retreat to my room and avoid them. My dad called me back. "Chu Ku-wen, come sit here. You should listen too." The conversation was short, so short I hadn't even reacted before my dad stood up and left. He asked Chen Tian, "It's been 2 years. Do you still love Li Ying?" Just like he'd asked him before, "It's been 2 years. Do you still love Chu Ku-wen?" That resolute gaze, that firm tone, remained unchanged. He replied, "Yes." Then Chen Tian left too. The wind blowing through the window was cold and dry, brushing against my cheek. I reached up and touched my face, realizing I'd been crying without knowing it. I pulled the divorce papers from my bedroom drawer. It was a souvenir Chen Tian had sent me on our 2-year wedding anniversary. Along with it was a small note that read, "Chu Chu Ku Wen, happy 2 years." He never wanted me to be his official wife. In his heart, he never acknowledged this legal marriage. For the past 2 years, I'd stubbornly stayed, enduring loneliness, emptiness, sleepless nights, all self-inflicted. He didn't love me, so he could freely torment me. Sending divorce papers on special occasions wasn't something Chen Tian did just once. My drawer was filled with other divorce papers. All sent on my birthday, our dating anniversary, our wedding anniversary. Each version was harsher than the last. Even as the one cheating, he treated me like an adversary, using business tactics to squeeze every last benefit from me. Just because he once said, "Chu Ku Wen, this is me giving you a chance." The very first time he sent divorce papers, he said it was my chance. If I didn't sign, he'd reduce my share of the assets. It repeated like that. He kept sending them, and I kept ignoring them. Tonight was the first time I'd actually taken one out, wanting to examine it closely. My dad's words were like a wake-up call. Chen Tian was stubborn. Once he decided on a path, he'd see it through. Before, it was I can't live without her. Now, it was I have to rip her out of my life. Compared to Chen Tian's brilliant career, my life was a mess. Even though I'd accepted the fact that he no longer loved me, I still suffered from chronic insomnia. Now, I couldn't even remember why we were so set on being together, or how we could have loved each other for 10 years. Just like before, I used to be stuck on the question of why Chen Tian fell out of love with me, unable to let go. Now, I didn't even think about it anymore, but I still feared the night. I always felt the night was too long, so long I was afraid I wouldn't make it through. So, I'd often put on nice clothes, pick a quiet corner in the house, and sit for a long time. I even thought that if one day I couldn't hold on anymore, at least when they found me, I'd still look good, still dignified. Even though the whole Chen Tian affair had ruined my reputation long ago. Even if public opinion was on my side, the ridicule and scorn would still be directed at me. In the quiet night, the phone's vibration sounded especially clear. I looked up at the clock on the living room wall. 10 p.m. It wasn't a prearranged call, and I couldn't guess who it was. When I picked it up, Chen Tian flashed on the screen, making me frown slightly. I didn't understand why he was suddenly calling me. Before, he was too lazy to even call to coldly pressure me into divorce. I had absolutely no interest in answering, even planning in my head that I wouldn't argue anymore, just sign the divorce papers and free myself. So, Chen Tian's call wasn't important. It took until the third vibrate before I slowly answered, intentionally mimicking his usual cold tone. "Chen Tian, what is it?" Silence for a few seconds, then I heard Chen Tian's bewildered, flustered voice. "Ku Wen, where are you?" My first reaction was that he must be drunk. But even drunk, Chen Tian had never used that tone with me. So, only one possibility remained. He dialed the wrong number. But he'd just called my name. One last possibility. He was messing with me. A sudden wave of hurt welled up, my voice trembling uncontrollably. I'd once told Chen Tian how much his rapid change had hurt me, but he never cared. Because I was the one hurting, not Li Ying, so he didn't care. I bit out each word. "Chen Tian, haven't you caused enough trouble? Do I have to die to satisfy you?" On the other end, Chen Tian's voice was panicked. He kept calling my name. Ku Wen, Ku Wen. Don't be angry, it's all my fault. I'm sorry." Chen Tian truly was scum to the core, knowing exactly where it hurt most and still poking at it. Only the real RTN, would genuinely change his expression for me, would panic over my emotions. But the current Chen Tian, he couldn't even fake being the old RTN anymore. If his goal was to keep me up all night, he'd succeeded. I wasn't planning on sleeping anyway, but now I had absolutely no desire to. At exactly 10:20, a knock at the door. It was Chen Tian's voice from outside. "Ku Wen, I forgot my key. Can you open the door for me?" I didn't know what game he was playing. That key belonged to him. The day he left, he'd thrown it on the shoe rack. He'd left so decisively, never looking back. So why today? Was he trying this trick to force me to sign the divorce papers? No need to beat around the bush. I'd just give them to him. After signing the papers, I opened the door. Chen Tian's hand was still hovering in the air. The panic on his face was something I hadn't seen in a long time. Before I could even throw the papers at him, he spoke first. "Ku Wen, what's going on? Why does everything look different?" I immediately guessed the amnesia plotline. This melodramatic twist must have been Li Ying's idea, and Chen Tian was foolish enough to believe it. I pointed at myself. "Who am I?" He replied, "Chu Ku Wen, my wife." He truly would stop at nothing to achieve his goals. I threw the divorce papers at him, slammed the door shut, and told him to get lost. Actually, in the divorce papers Chen Tian had personally drafted, he left me the house. Not out of kindness, but because it held too many of our memories. Li Ying didn't like it, so he conveniently played the good guy, using it as a bargaining chip. I still remembered him saying, "Chu Ku Wen, if you like living in the past, just stay trapped there. Don't step out." I didn't understand how he could think his affair was progress, while my refusal to break up meant I was stuck in the past. Everything was my fault. Even my attempts to hold on were seen as a stumbling block in his way. Chen Tian's voice continued to echo through the crack in the door. Those divorce papers didn't help him achieve his goal. Instead, they made him stand outside, shouting endlessly, asking, "What does it all mean?" The neighbors opposite opened their door, telling Chen Tian to keep it down. I had to open the door and face him clearly. Someone had to give in. This charade needed to end. He struggled to control himself, holding up the divorce papers, asking me, "What is this?" For the first time, his feigned innocence genuinely made me laugh. "Chen Tian, isn't this your official wedding ticket with Li Ying?" He continued to ask me, "Why? Why did we suddenly get married? Why are we suddenly getting divorced? Why did you push me away to a stranger?" I reached out and gently pinched a corner of the paper, as if trying to find a crack in the mask he was wearing. "If you keep this up, Chen Tian, I'll take back these divorce papers." He seriously placed the paper in my hand, looking at me and saying, "Ku Wen, tear it up." Hearing the door opposite open, I immediately pulled Chen Tian inside. I hadn't intended to let him in, just thought this could be resolved quickly. But it turned into a long, drawn-out tug-of-war. I gave him what he wanted, but in his words, it became me carelessly abandoning him. Again and again, he asked me why. Was it just to rationalize his selfishness, to make me bear the blame for his affair? When he stopped loving me, Chen Tian was truly terrifyingly heartless. At exactly 11 p.m., my phone's alarm rang as usual. I put it on speaker and set it aside. Chen Jip's call was right on time. As soon as he heard my voice, he regretfully said, "I wish you'd given me a chance to apologize for disturbing your sleep." I'd suffered from insomnia for a long time. Ever since Chen Jip entered my life, he'd always said the same thing over and over. "I really hope that one day you'll tell me you have to go to bed early and not to call at 11. Chen Tian, looking like he was catching someone red-handed, his face grim, stared at the phone. He asked the person on the other end, his voice cold, "Chen Jip, what do you mean? Are you pursuing my wife?" Chen Jip was silent for a few seconds, then laughed, asking Chen Tian in return, "Didn't you tell me to pursue Chu Ku Wen?" He then asked with a cold laugh, "Chen Tian, don't tell me you regret it now." Then he hung up decisively. I rarely saw Chen Tian so flustered. This was the second time. He seemed to completely misunderstand what was happening, repeatedly asking me, "Ku Wen, what in the world happened? Why has everything changed just from a little headache?" His face was full of pain as he asked me, "How could I not need you?" To this day, 4. I still don't have an answer to that question, and I've long since given up trying to find out why Chen Tian suddenly stopped loving me. But I believe he knows the reason, so he shouldn't be asking me. Suddenly, he asked me, "Where are those intertwined couple statues we had on the TV cabinet?" If he hadn't mentioned it, I might have forgotten they were ever there. It must have been 4 or 5 years ago when I first noticed the signs of Li Ying intruding. In a fight with him, I angrily threw it to the ground. Actually, even then, I clearly saw that Chen Tian's heart was no longer mine. He'd clearly said when he gave it to me that it symbolized us holding hands until the end of our lives. Yet, later, when it broke, Chen Tian just stepped over the pieces and casually said, "Clean up this trash." The brief confrontation between Chen Jip and Chen Tian was relayed to me by someone with an agenda. At that time, Chen Tian began openly bringing Li Ying to various social gatherings. When he encountered Chen Jip bluntly told Chen Tian to take that unidentified woman away. Chen Tian, defending Li Ying, angrily yelled at Chen Jip, "Are you feeling sorry for Chu Kuwen? Then go pursue her. It'll be perfect, then you can convince her to agree to the divorce and marry you." Chen Tian always knew how to twist the knife, aiming the sharpest point at me. Even though most of my resentment came from still loving him, when he aimed every knife and sword at me, my heart learned to hurt, to be disappointed, to grow cold, and to leave. Chen Jip's call came at a time when that story no longer caused a ripple in me. I had almost no reason left to blame Chen Tian for pushing me away. He didn't love me anymore, so it was natural for him to try every way to remove me from his life. Neither of us brought up that topic. He naturally asked, "Why are you still awake so late?" "You're listening to RTN on Chen Tian Min on's YouTube channel. He said if he hadn't worked overtime tonight, he wouldn't have called at this hour." At first, it was just an occasional call, but later, 11 p.m. almost became our unspoken rendezvous. Everything under the sun, he only cared about when my insomnia would be cured, and I never asked him anything. When Chen Tian pursued me, all his love letters were delivered through Chen Jip. So, whether Chen Tian ever loved me, Chen Jip knew better than I did. Chen Tian's bare feet on the floor. This was the first time he'd silently confronted the changes around him. It seemed he'd realized that the more he asked why, the more he'd get hurt. He started to focus on me. "Kuwen, you've grown up so much." I knew he was mocking me, implying I was older, my beauty faded. I admitted Li Ying was younger, full of vitality. I just felt how cruelly he, with his innocent demeanor, uttered words that pierced my heart. It was too cruel. I gritted my teeth and retorted, "Chen Tian, don't be ridiculous. I'm 31. Do you expect me to turn into some 20-something girl like Li Ying?" Chen Tian suddenly bolted up from the sofa, his eyes on me strange. Had I said something that struck a nerve, making him unable to believe his ears? I guessed he finally realized that in the hour he'd been there, he hadn't called or messaged Li Ying once. I silently waited for him to pull out his phone and report his whereabouts, but instead, he timidly asked me, his voice even trembling slightly, "Kuwen, you said you're how old this year?" He seemed to think the question wasn't clear enough, so he rephrased, "Kuwen, what year is this?" 2023. He ran around my apartment like a madman, looking for proof that I was telling the truth. I'd already started texting Chen Jip, asking if he knew of any effective mental hospitals. He asked, "Why? Are you going for a checkup?" I replied, "Chen Tian's gone crazy. Can you help me find a good place and tell Li Ying to take him?" Finally, the proof was the date on the divorce papers. Chen Tian looked at me as if waking from a dream, saying, "No wonder. No wonder." Then he burst into tears, breaking down, blaming himself in pain. "Kuwen, why did I turn into such a jerk, abandoning you when I grew up?" Seeing my continued coldness, he said, "Kuwen, I'm 21-year-old Chen Tian. I'm your RTN." At 21, it was the first year we started planning our future. Back then, Chen Tian suddenly said he wanted to save money, gain experience to start a business, to give me a grand wedding, to bring me home in glory. He promised me, "Kuwen, by the time you're 30 at the latest, I will definitely marry you." He also said, "Kuwen, trust me, I don't want you to suffer any hardships." Yet later, all the hardships I suffered were brought by him. I don't know if time cracks exist, allowing 21-year-old RTN to cross 10 years to witness the wreckage between us. I understood his despair. At 21, he loved me wholeheartedly. He shared everything with me, big or small. Any new or interesting item, He'd bring it to me first. 10 years later, the apartment we once rented was now bought. All the little gifts he'd given me were gone. Every trace of him, erased. Before he could even marry me, he had to witness our divorce. So, after looking at the divorce papers, he pointed at the harsh asset division, asking me, "Kuen, did I fail in my business? Why did I leave you with nothing?" I wasn't sure if his words were real or not. If they were fake, I wasn't bothered to reply. Because this present was his own making. The draft of those divorce papers was discussed by him and Li Ying, line by line. I didn't even have a chance to negotiate. I could only be forced to accept. If I resisted, in the next version, the conditions that were originally mine would be further cut. Even when breaking up, Chen Tian used extreme coercive tactics. But if this was true, then the person in front of me was truly my RTN. The one who loved me with all his heart. In his world, there was only one desire, to bring the whole world before me with all his might, no trace of Li Ying. I couldn't deny it. I deeply loved and yearned for 21-year-old RTN. Even though we had nothing then, even wealth was just imagination. But back then, RTN was my entire world. He said again, "He's really worthless, to abandon my Kuen." Then he tore the divorce papers into tiny pieces. He said, "Kuen, I won't let you suffer any injustice." His eyes, as he looked at me then, were as firm as they were at 17. How many times had he looked at me like that, loving and only loving me? Finally, I believed. My RTN had truly returned. When Chen Jip arrived, I told RTN everything that was happening. I regretfully had to shatter, word by word, the future picture of a happy family with kids and grandkids after 30 that we used to draw up our future together, a beautiful blueprint. But now, he desperately wanted me to spill the beans. "Kuen," he said, his voice laced with an unsettling intensity. "I want to know what kind of messed up things he did." When I told him we never had a wedding, that our marriage certificate was just a desperate last-ditch effort to salvage a dying relationship, RTN's head snapped up. His eyes, raining hatred like sharp knives, burned into me. He snarled, gritting his teeth. "He's an animal. A complete beast." Every word dripped with venom, directed at the Chen Tian of my reality. When I recounted how Chen Tian brazenly told my dad to tell Chen Jip to pursue me, RTN shot up from the sofa again. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. His hands shook with such fury that he finally just slapped himself, hard, across the face. And then, when I told him how Chen Tian had declared his love for Li Ying to my dad, RTN collapsed back onto the sofa, as if all the strength had drained from his body. He'd worked so hard to win my dad over, just to get the chance to be openly with me. And Chen Tian, the future him, had personally destroyed the happiness he'd fought so hard for. "What do I do now?" he whispered, not to me, but to himself, or perhaps to the future Chen Tian. Because, weren't they the same person? As for Li Ying, I simply told him that the future Chen Tian deeply loved her, fiercely pressuring me to sign the divorce papers just to marry Li Ying as soon as possible. He looked at me, bewildered. "Kuen, what does he love about her?" "I don't know," I admitted. "But I believe what Chen Tian once said. He said people just love without reason. It has nothing to do with age or looks. At first, he just wanted to meet a few more times, then he wanted to see her every day." He even threw the question back at me. "Chu Kuen, can you tell me why?" That day, I went berserk. I threw everything related to Chen Tian in the house to the ground, unleashing all my resentment. RTN stepped aside, standing by the doorway, watching my meltdown. He just laughed. "Even now, you still don't understand that he doesn't love you anymore. That bastard, that dog-hearted, cat-lunged jerk, who once swore he'd love only me, was now hell-bent on making me accept that he didn't. He only felt satisfaction, as if he'd taken another step toward forcing me to sign. He never realized how cruel his words and actions were." I was silent for a full minute before answering. Maybe a lifetime is too long, and loving only one person is just too hard. Back then, I was naive. I was foolish to believe in that loving you forever lie he told. When Chen Jip walked in, RTN glared at him with clear hostility. "Chen Jip, what are you doing here?" "Chen Jip, oblivious to the drama, found Chen Tian's erratic behavior amusing. He looked me up and down, then leaned in, whispering, "Chu Kuwen, don't be scared." RTN, like a madman, stomped on the coffee table and lunged, pulling Chen Jip away from me. He snarled at Chen Jip like a wolf. "Chen Jip, don't you dare touch my wife." What he was doing was exactly what 21-year-old RTN would have done. Chen Jip seemed to realize something was off. He frowned, quietly muttering Chen Tian, then suddenly burst out laughing, pointing at the divorce papers on the coffee table. "Chen Tian, have you really fallen this low? Still putting on a show with Li Ying for a piece of paper? Or do you need me to invest in this script? You two can be the leads, but remember, I'll make sure the screenwriter writes a tragic ending for the conniving man and woman." I'd never told RTN that his future self would fall for a no-name, mediocre actress. The reason she was unknown. Terrible acting, of course. Chen Jip and I both scoffed at RTN's awful acting skills. To pick an actress with no talent whatsoever. Perhaps the future Chen Tian was RTN's deepest shame and weakness, because the mention of Li Ying made him fall silent. The biggest difference between him and Chen Tian was that at least, in this moment, he still felt shame. Chen Tian didn't. If it were Chen Tian, he would never have tolerated anyone speaking ill of Li Ying. Even if it was the truth, he'd argue it to death. Winning didn't matter. What mattered was showing his unwavering stance to protect Li Ying. How did I know this so well? Because when I was the one he loved, he used to protect me the same way. Do you think dating as teenagers is applauded by the world? Wrong. Harsh words always came like a storm. Looking back, those words might not have been taunts, just painful truths. So, I also started regretting ever loving Chen Tian. The whispers that once made my heart flutter now seemed meaningless. Just a flick of his hand was enough to make me swoon. In the end, it was just my own superficiality. Li Ying's call came quite late, almost 12:30 a.m., like the toll of a phantom bell at midnight. The phone rang for a long time before RTN reacted, realizing it was his phone. Chen Jip leaned in and whispered to me again, "I guess he's old and senile." Before RTN could speak, Chen Jip quickly added, "Pick it up. Your true love is calling. Li Ying's looking for you." Chen Jip hit a sore spot. RTN, embarrassed, gave up resisting. "I don't know what you're thinking," he mumbled. "I just can't seem to answer the call." The first call went to voicemail. Chen Jip feigned surprise. "Chen Tian, your life is over. According to Li Ying's love rules, you have to answer within 10 seconds. I'd never known this, as I rarely bothered to delve into Chen Tian and Li Ying's relationship. Whether he lived well or poorly, Chen Tian would never suddenly turn around and feel that I was the best. Because I too had moments of weakness back then, and RTN spoiled me just the same. So, compared to Chen Jip's taunts, I only sighed in realization. Chen Tian truly loved Li Ying. I had the privilege of witnessing Li Ying's emotional terrorism. When the call automatically hung up, it rang again. Chen Tian's new ringtone was jarring. It gave me a headache. As I raised my hand to rub my forehead, RTN immediately stepped forward. "Kuwen, where do you feel unwell?" I pointed to his phone. "Can you answer that? Don't let such bothersome things happen repeatedly." When Li Ying's voice came through the phone, I finally understood the clear reason for the breakdown of my relationship with Chen Tian. Later, both of us were busy with social engagements. Usually, by the time he came home, I was too tired and asleep. Or by the time I came home, he wasn't there yet. We missed too many opportunities to say "I love you" or "I miss you," to the point where I couldn't even remember the last time I told him "I miss you." I also rarely called him when he came home late. I knew he was busy, so I wouldn't bother him. But Li Ying was doing the opposite of me. She would urge Chen Tian to come home. She would be gentle and coquettish when he answered, "RTN, I miss you." If it were the old Chen Tian, he would definitely have been delighted by that kind of dependence. But the RTN in front of me now just looked at me with horror. Li Ying's appearance brazenly exposed the truth of his past infidelity. Chen Tian didn't care, but RTN did. He immediately hung up, weakly defending himself. "Kuwen, this has nothing to do with me." I heard Chen Jip intentionally laugh, then gradually laugh louder, as if he'd just heard a dark joke from a history book. Not laughing would truly be a disservice to Chen Tian's sudden, absurd realization. According to Chen Tian's personality, if he didn't love, he definitely didn't love. Hurting me to the extreme was only because he had no intention of turning back. But this was RTN. My RTN was now bearing the consequences of what Chen Tian had destroyed. I knew I shouldn't blame him, but I could only blame him. RTN appeared at the wrong time, when everything was already set. He suddenly appeared, trying to salvage this deadlock by himself. But then he discovered that the truth always makes people look ridiculous and helpless. RTN loved me from beginning to end, but Chen Tian didn't. I could clearly feel the coldness in his eyes when his love for me ran dry. When he loved Li Ying with all his sincerity, when he firmly told my dad that he loved Li Ying, the last bit of affection left in me also vanished. So, RTN's appearance couldn't change the predetermined outcome. It hurt me to see him witness firsthand how his future self betrayed his vows and became an adulterer, to the point of despising himself. But I won't love him again. Right now, his 21-year-old RTN, who will say that everything was done by the other person and has nothing to do with him. But he too will grow up to be 31-year-old Chen Tian, who will mock my stubborn persistence as useless. What happened is irreversible, even if it were Chen Tian himself. What's more, Chen Tian doesn't have a soft heart like RTN. So, as RTN sat there weeping, I could only vaguely shed tears with him. We both ultimately betrayed our 21-year-old vows. He once said he wanted to give me the whole world. I said I'd bear him a son and a daughter. I don't know whether to call it luck or regret. I endured until 1 a.m. Chen Jip was yawning continuously, exhausted. RTN also looked utterly drained. I urged Chen Jip to go home and catch up on sleep, having just worked overtime, and then rushed to my place to join the drama. As he left, he quietly reminded me, "Chu Kuwen, you need to be careful. Don't let Chen Tian bully you anymore." Before, Chen Tian's job was to protect me completely, but now, it was someone else's turn to remind me to guard against his sneak attacks and open assaults. After seeing Chen Jip off, I turned to RTN. "Are you leaving? If you don't know the way, call Li Ying to pick you up." He gave me that pitiful, injured look again. "Kuwen, besides you, I have nothing." Perhaps it was because he'd done so many hurtful things to me later, but these tender, sweet words no longer held any meaning for me. I just reminded him, "If you leave, Chen Tian will regret it. You, 21-year-old, belong to the past. Now is Chen Tian's world. In that world, words of love were never meant for me." I calmly continued, "RTN, facing the fact that he won't love you forever isn't difficult. Just as Chen Tian once told me, Chu Kuwen, accepting that I don't love you anymore isn't difficult." At 21, he was too young. "What can a child do?" he asked me, sitting there confused, asking what he should do. He and Chen Tian couldn't coexist, but they could confront each other, analyze their inner selves, and advise each other. His appearance only made Chen Tian more remorseful and pained by his past actions. Otherwise, it accomplished nothing. Just like now, he held his phone, asking me how to unlock it. In this world, where my relationship with Chen Tian had collapsed, his existence was utterly out of place. The past, no matter what, was still the past. Only the present and future could be changed. I stepped across the 1-meter gap between us, approached him, and taught him how to unlock it with a fingerprint. He instinctively took my other hand, but the artificial nails with their embedded stones felt odd to him. He lowered his head, clearly not understanding, but still reflexively praised, "Beautiful, truly beautiful." He looked at me for a long time. The dark circles under my eyes, the puffiness, the dull skin, and the wrinkles of age, all clearly visible to him. He suddenly apologized, then continued, "I apologize to you on his behalf. Kuwen, I'm so sorry that later on, I couldn't love you properly." After successfully unlocking the phone, the wallpaper, a photo of Chen Tian and Li Ying together, immediately appeared before his eyes. I just coldly reminded him, "If Chen Tian knew you were saying these things to me, he would definitely kill you." He naturally continued my thought. "Yeah, that's fine. He and I can die together. As long as you live well, that's enough. His cold jokes didn't make me show any emotion. At this point, he finally lowered his head to look at the phone. I couldn't see his expression, only that his movements were stiff, unchanging. I took the opportunity to yawn, saying I wanted to go to my room to sleep. Then I told RTN that there was nothing suitable for him in the house. If he was tired, he could sleep on the sofa, or leave whenever he wanted. I was afraid he wouldn't know how to contact Li Ying, so I actively searched through my contacts for him and showed him which one was Li Ying. Ironically, in his contacts, he still noted her as True Love Li Ying. He learned very quickly, scrolling through Chen Tian's contacts skillfully. People who, at 21, were out of his reach, were now all in his contact list. From Chen Tian's perspective, at 31, he was a winner in life. Career, love, he had it all. And this disastrous failed marriage, became his only blemish, which was why he wanted to erase it at all costs, without mercy. He asked me, "Ku Wen, what about you? Why can't I find you?" I had to once again present Chen Tian's disgust for me to him clearly. "You're in his blacklist." Besides that call just now, Chen Tian and I haven't been in contact for a long time. He seemed to still not give up, searching through the blacklist, and sure enough, he found my name. He let out a cold laugh, then sneered, "He's really decisive." When I stood up, he took my hand and quietly asked, "Can you stay with me for a little while?" He hesitated for a moment, then continued, "Anyway, I don't know when I'll leave." Neither of us knew why he could travel through time and get here. Before we figured out the rules, whether he would leave or return was an unknown, or perhaps we would never see each other again. The dazzling couple photo, along with the screen turning off, plunged into darkness. He placed the phone face down on the coffee table. Out of sight, out of mind. Compared to how to deal with Chen Tian's betrayal, I suddenly realized that at this moment, RTN was the most important person. I once promised to give Chen Tian a chance. 2 long, arduous years I tried in vain. That chance could be considered exhausted. Gradually, as Chen Tian stopped loving me, I also stopped loving him. But what about RTN? I didn't know if, when he returned to his world, he would retain the memory of this moment. I hoped he wouldn't remember anything that was happening right now. 1,000 times, no. The sins Chen Tian committed should not be borne by RTN. I hoped he could truly love Chu Ku Wen. Even if he only loved until he was 28, please love with all your heart. I asked him what was happening in his world when he came here. He smiled at me, a mix of helplessness and tenderness. "I was late picking you up, and someone else bought the bag you liked. You got angry and said you were breaking up with me. When I came here, I was running all over trying to find a similar bag to cheer you up again." Then he asked me, "Ku Wen, did I succeed in cheering you up afterward?" So, it was at this exact moment. I had long forgotten about that bag. I remembered this incident clearly because after we made up, Chen Tian once said, "Chu Ku Wen, don't give up on me so easily again. I can do anything for you. Just don't say goodbye." It was also then that I owed Chen Tian a promise. I said, "When you no longer need me, can I also have a chance?" In fact, before that, he had always kept his promise so well, that promise was never needed. But when he was determined to love Li Ying, that promise was used again and again. Until I declared the chance was over, we ultimately abandoned those 10 years. Chen Jip texted me, saying that Li Ying was frantically trying to find Chen Tian's whereabouts. She was making a huge, arrogant fuss, but that was also because Chen Tian allowed it. When Li Ying's call came to me, it was 3:30 a.m. Just one more hour and I could see the first light of dawn and the sun draped in its golden cloak. I didn't know if dawn was the signal for RTN to leave. When I turned to look at him, he showed no signs of change or discomfort. He even pointed at my phone and asked, "Aren't you going to answer? It's so noisy." For the first time, I heard Chen Tian consider Li Ying's call an annoyance. I had been too careless, not realizing Li Ying had slowly, step by step, infiltrated my relationship, then openly stolen Chen Tian. He laughed at me like a lonely, unloved person. I showed him my phone screen, a string of continuous calls, but I clearly remembered it was Li Ying's number. I told him, if I answer, Li Ying will find you. Chen Tian, you should go home. He laughed at my straightforwardness, then asked, you don't know how to lie? Will she really come to the door? I guessed he had probably taught Li Ying that trick to deal with my calls. In fact, from the beginning, I had overthought things. Perhaps our marriage registration at that time was just my compromise and Chen Tian's reluctance. If Li Ying hadn't left then, he might not have even given me that chance. I truly couldn't think of any reason to lie to help Chen Tian. I had to lie to my husband's mistress, in name only. I couldn't do something so despicable. Moreover, the choice was always Chen Tian's. To stay or to leave was his decision. Just like Chen Jip later told me that Li Ying actively seduced Chen Tian. But I also believed that besides being tempted, Chen Tian had other paths he could have chosen. Being with Li Ying was also his choice. At that time, I could never control Chen Tian's choices. I put the phone on speaker on the coffee table. Li Ying's voice echoed through the phone, Chu Kuwen, is Chen Tian with you? Just like when I called, wanting to talk to Chen Tian, asking her, Li Ying, is Chen Tian with you? Back then, she would always intentionally ignore my call, chatting intimately with Chen Tian, then pretending to suddenly remember and say, Chu Kuwen, are you still there? I'll transfer the call to RTN. At that time, I was naive enough to think I could use that opportunity to get Chen Tian back, foolishly enduring Li Ying's sarcasm and threats. Now, looking back, it was truly stupid. I endured every injustice. So, I mimicked her tone from before, asking RTN, do you think I should answer? Li Ying, more assertive than me, hung up without waiting for Chen Tian's reply. Chen Tian's phone began to ring continuously. I saw him hang up and then sit back on the sofa, not saying a word. Between us now, Li Ying existed. Even facing 21-year-old RTN, we couldn't speak our hearts anymore. We both knew this was the real farewell. Li Ying was coming. It was getting light. RTN had to go back to being Chen Tian. And Chen Tian loved Li Ying passionately and shouldn't be with Chu Kuwen. He slowly stood up, picked up the phone, and held it tightly in his hand. The signed divorce agreement. He tore it to shreds. He told me, Kuwen, wait for me to draft a new divorce agreement. He looked at me, his eyes full of regret. He said, I'll give you what you deserve. Don't be foolish and suffer any more losses. Kuwen, ultimately, Chen Tian wronged you. Please let him go. When Li Ying's car pulled into the driveway, the headlights were so blinding they hurt my eyes. I instinctively closed them, not wanting to see Li Ying run to embrace Chen Tian. I heard the car door open, then close, followed by RTN's voice, it's no good. I opened my eyes and saw RTN looking at me, his eyes once again showing pity. He said, Kuwen, do you know how beautiful you are? You're even more beautiful now than before. Chen Tian really has no taste. I believe someone else will love you more than Chen Tian. Li Ying, clinging to Chen Tian, watched me cautiously. I did nothing but quietly watch Chen Tian leave my world again. This time, I no longer wished for him to return. I decided I didn't need him anymore. He pulled free from Li Ying's grasp, turned, and said to me, Kuwen, sleep well from now on. The last farewell between RTN and me was, RTN, Chu Kuwen fell asleep on the sofa. Remember to cover her with a blanket. He said, okay. That day, I cried and fell asleep on the sofa. In my memory, RTN arrived a bit late, causing me to catch a cold. The next day, I had a headache and a stuffy nose, feeling utterly miserable. I even followed some online rumors and kissed RTN several times, hoping that if I gave him my cold, I wouldn't need to take medicine anymore. After that, we both caught colds, lost all interest, and even missed a concert. That day, he arrived late, panting, sweating, standing at my door, apologetically saying he still hadn't found the bag. He kept promising to make it up to me later. He made long, drawn-out promises, and I, just waking up, my head spinning, reacted slowly. He almost went crazy, swearing and begging me to forgive him and retract my breakup words. He said he loved only me and couldn't imagine life without me. Even though he lived well with Li Ying later, I still wished he could have covered me with that blanket in time. Neither of us got sick. I quickly replied to his apology, saying I had long since forgiven him. Saying goodbye was just an offhand remark. And we didn't miss that concert. That singer passed away the next year from a common illness. We no longer had the chance to see that singer perform, making it a lifelong regret. If that were the case, RTN wouldn't have had to swear that if I left him, he couldn't live. I truly intended to leave him, but I didn't want his oath to come true. Just not bothering each other would be enough. I had a dream about turning back time. In my dream, I returned to the time before we registered our marriage. At that moment, I no longer calculated the emotional cost of our 10-year relationship. Facing Chen Tian's torn emotions, I blurted out, "Let's break up, Chen Tian." I returned to the moment I first found evidence of Chen Tian's affair, went straight home, told my dad everything, and resolutely stood by him, wanting to break up with Chen Tian. After that came our 10 years of inseparable entanglement. All the good things Chen Tian did for me flashed by like a fast-forwarded film. I saw 21-year-old Chen Tian covering Chu Ku Wen with a blanket. The handbag that once caused us to argue was replaced by a warm cup of water. In just a few short minutes, our 10 years rewound quickly. Back to the moment my dad discovered Chen Tian waiting for me. I ran upstairs and told my dad I would break up with Chen Tian. Then back to the beginning. When Chen Tian gently hooked my finger and asked, "Chu Ku Wen, I like you, do you like me?" My tears fell with my answer, "Chen Tian, I don't like you." Then, like a shattered dream, memories fragmented and gradually vanished. I suddenly woke up. Chen Jip's phone was ringing relentlessly. I sat there blankly, slowly waking from my dream. Chen Jip told me, Chen Tian committed suicide. I said, "Chen Jip, don't joke like that." He said, "Chu Ku Wen, check the news. It's all over the media." I saw the news about Chen Tian at the top of the search results. His car's dashcam recorded the entire process. Chen Tian strangling Li Ying and then pushing her into the river, his cold eyes staring at the water without any unnecessary movements. The commenters and I all guessed he was waiting for Li Ying to sink to the bottom. Then he drove to a cliff. I saw him raise both hands, backing away step by step. He didn't know which step would send him over the edge, but I, through the blurred video, could clearly see every step he took toward death, as if counting down to his demise. At the third step, he suddenly said 2 sentences, "Don't save me. Don't bury us together." When he fell off the cliff, I screamed and dropped my phone. The incident was ruled a suicide. Li Ying being the third party was exposed, and public opinion quickly flooded her home. As for Chen Tian, most people said he deserved to die. There were many speculations about why Chen Tian and Li Ying suddenly turned on each other. Sensitive netizens even wrote short stories about their karmic retribution. I did nothing but quietly move back home. In the afternoon, I received a call from a delivery person. I remembered this person because Chen Tian's divorce papers were all delivered by him. I drove there, stood outside the door, and signed for the document. It wasn't divorce papers. It was Chen Tian's suicide note to me. Just a thin piece of paper with one line. "Ku Wen, I've taken him away. Take what belongs to you and live freely." The signature was RTN.